If you've ever tried to grow carrots, especially in the heat of late summer for a fall harvest, you know the frustration. Those tiny seeds are notoriously tricky. You plant them, you water them, you wait. And often, nothing. Or maybe just a sparse, disappointing few. It's enough to make you want to give up on fall carrots entirely. But don't. Because today, I'm going to share my absolute foolproof, guaranteed method for getting a fantastic stand of fall carrots. Even when the sun is blazing. This isn't just about getting some carrots, it's about getting a dense, vibrant crop of the sweetest, most tender carrots you've ever tasted, right from your own backyard. Why are fall carrots so special, you ask? It's all about the timing. As the days shorten and the nights cool down, carrots naturally sweeten up. They store sugars in their roots, preparing for winter. And that translates into an incredible flavor you just don't get from spring-planted carrots. Plus, the pest pressure tends to be much lower in the fall. But the challenge, as we all know, is getting those delicate seeds to germinate when the soil is still warm and prone to drying out. Most gardeners just sprinkle seeds, give them a quick water, and hope for the best. That's where the trouble starts. Carrot seeds need consistent moisture and a specific temperature range to sprout, and summer conditions often work against them. They also need darkness, which is a detail many overlook. My board cover technique tackles all these problems head-on, creating the perfect microclimate for germination. I've used this method for years, from my small raised beds to larger in-ground patches. And it consistently delivers a near 100% germination rate. Let's dive into the how-to. The first step, and it's a critical one, is site prep. Carrots need full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours a day, and loose, well-drained soil. They absolutely despise heavy, compacted soil. If your soil is like concrete, those roots will fork and twist, resulting in ugly, stunted carrots. So, if you're planting in a raised bed, you're already ahead of the game. If you're going in-ground, you'll want to dig down at least 12 inches, loosening the soil thoroughly. Remove any rocks, sticks, or large clumps of dirt. Even a small pebble can deform a growing carrot. Think of it like this: you're creating a soft, welcoming bed for those long, straight roots to develop. Next up, soil amendment. Carrots are not heavy feeders, but they do appreciate rich, organic matter. I always amend my carrot beds with a good, aged compost. About an inch or two spread over the surface and gently worked into the top 6 inches of soil is perfect. This improves drainage, adds nutrients, and helps retain moisture. Now, a word of caution: avoid fresh manure. While it's great for many plants, fresh manure can cause carrots to fork and develop side roots, making them tough and unappetizing. Stick to well-rotted compost. Once your soil is prepped and amended, rake it smooth and level. You want a flat, even surface for consistent seed depth. Now for the stars of the show. The seeds themselves. Carrot seeds have a relatively short shelf life, usually about 2 to 3 years. So, always use fresh seeds for the best germination rates. Don't try to use that packet from 5 years ago, you'll just be setting yourself up for disappointment. As for varieties, choose what you love. For fall planting, I often go with reliable main season types like Danvers 126, Nance, or Scarlet Nance. These are robust, flavorful, and store well. If you're in a shorter season zone or want quicker results, Paris Market or Thumbelina are great for containers and mature faster. Time to sow the seeds. Because carrot seeds are so tiny, they need to be planted very shallowly. I aim for about a 1/4 inch deep. Any deeper, and they might not have enough energy to push through the soil. Any shallower, and they'll dry out too quickly. I like to create a shallow furrow using the edge of a trowel or a stick. For spacing, I aim for about 1 to 2 inches apart in the row. This might seem close, but we'll thin them later. If you're broadcasting them over a wider area, just try to scatter them as evenly as possible. Don't worry too much about perfect spacing at this stage, getting them to germinate is the priority. Once the seeds are in their furrows, cover them. I use a very fine layer of either potting mix, vermiculite, or just some finely sifted garden soil. The key is that it's light and doesn't compact. You want to barely cover the seeds, just enough so you can't see them anymore. This light covering helps maintain moisture around the seed without creating a heavy crust that emerging seedlings can't penetrate. Here's where the magic starts. Before you apply the board, you need to water thoroughly and gently. This is crucial. You want the soil to be consistently moist, not just damp on the surface. Use a watering can with a fine rose attachment or a gentle shower setting on your hose to avoid washing away those tiny seeds. Water until the top few inches of soil are saturated, but not waterlogged. This initial deep watering is what will sustain the seeds under the board. Now, for the board itself. You'll need a piece of untreated wood, plywood, or even a thick piece of cardboard. The size should be wide enough to cover your planted row or section, and as long as your planting area. I usually use a 1x6 or 1x8 piece of lumber. Place the board directly over the freshly planted and watered seeds. Make sure it makes good contact with the soil surface. The purpose of this board is twofold. First, it blocks out light, which carrot seeds need for optimal germination. Second, and most importantly, it creates a perfectly consistent, humid microclimate underneath. It prevents the soil surface from drying out, even in scorching summer heat, and it keeps the soil temperature more stable. This is the secret sauce for those high germination rates. Once the board is in place, the waiting game begins. For most carrot varieties, germination can take anywhere from 7 to 21 days. During this period, you need to check under the board daily. Yes, every single day. Gently lift the board and inspect the soil surface. If it looks like it's starting to dry out, give it another gentle misting or light watering. The goal is to keep that soil consistently moist, like a wrung-out sponge. Don't let it dry out completely, not even for a few hours, or you risk losing your entire crop. This daily check is non-negotiable for success. The critical moment comes when you start to see tiny green sprouts emerging. This is the time for removing the board. And it needs to be done carefully. If you pull the board off too quickly, exposing the delicate seedlings to direct sun and dry air, they can wither and die almost instantly. Instead, remove the board for just a few hours during the coolest part of the day, early morning or late afternoon, for the first day or two. Then, gradually increase their exposure to sunlight over the next 3 to 5 days. You can prop the board up on bricks or small blocks to allow some filtered light and air in. Or just remove it for longer periods each day. This hardening off process is vital for the seedlings to adapt to the outside world. Once they've developed their first true leaves, those are the second set of leaves. After the initial seed leaves, you can remove the board completely. After germination, consistent moisture remains key. Those young seedlings are still very vulnerable. Water regularly, especially during dry spells, ensuring the top few inches of soil remain moist. Don't let the soil dry out, but also avoid overwatering, which can lead to damping off disease. Once your seedlings are about an inch or two tall, it's time for thin. This is often the hardest part for new gardeners, but it's absolutely essential for good carrot development. If you leave the carrots too crowded, they'll compete for resources and you'll end up with small, stunted roots. I thin my carrots to a final spacing of about 1 to 3 inches apart, depending on the variety. For larger carrots like Danvers, I aim for 3 inches. For smaller, quicker varieties, 1 to 2 inches is fine. Gently pull out the weaker seedlings, leaving the strongest ones to grow. Don't just snip them at the soil line, actually pull them out to avoid leaving roots that can rot and attract pests. Now, let's talk about some common mistakes that can derail your fall carrot success, even with the board method. The first is improper soil prep. Thinking you can just toss seeds into compacted, rocky soil is a recipe for disaster. Take the time to loosen and amend. Another big one is inconsistent watering. Before the board, if the soil isn't thoroughly moist initially, the board won't be able to do its job. The third mistake is leaving the board on. Once you see those first sprouts, you must begin the gradual removal process. If you leave the board on for days after germination, the seedlings will become leggy, weak, and susceptible to disease. And finally, I know it feels wrong to pull out perfectly good seedlings, but it's a necessary sacrifice for a bountiful harvest. Overcrowding is a top reason for small, misshapen carrots. Let me share a quick personal story. Years ago, before I perfected this board technique, I was so frustrated with my fall carrots. I'd plant them, water them, and get maybe 10% germination. I thought it was my soil, or the seeds, or maybe I just wasn't cut out for carrots. One particularly hot August, I tried everything: shade cloth, constant misting, but the soil surface would just bake dry, and the seeds would fail. Then an old-timer at my local garden center mentioned his plank method. I tried it, skeptical, but the next morning when I lifted that board, the soil was still perfectly moist. Within a week, I had a carpet of green. It was a game changer, and it taught me that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. So, why does this board cover method work so well? It's all about creating an ideal microclimate. Carrot seeds need 3 things to germinate: moisture, warmth, but not too much heat, and darkness. In late summer, direct sun can quickly dry out the top layer of soil where those tiny seeds are nestled. The board acts as a physical barrier, preventing evaporation and keeping the soil consistently moist. It also shades the soil, moderating temperature swings and preventing the surface from getting too hot, which can inhibit germination. And finally, the darkness under the board signals to the seed that it's safe to sprout, mimicking the conditions of being buried just deep enough. It's a simple, elegant solution that leverages the plant's natural needs. Now, let's talk timing by USDA zone. Because this is crucial for a successful fall crop. If you're in zones 5 to 6, you'll typically want to plant your fall carrots in late July through mid-August. This gives them enough time to mature before the really hard freezes set in, usually around 60 to 75 days. 4. Zones 7 to 8. You have a bit more flexibility, often planting from mid-August through early September. You might even squeeze in a second succession if you plant early. And if you're lucky enough to be in Zone 9 or you can often plant fall carrots from September all the way into October, potentially even growing them through the winter with some protection. The key is to count back from your average first frost date. Most carrot varieties need about 60 to 75 days to mature from germination. So, if your first hard frost is typically November 1st, you'd want to have your seeds germinated and growing by early September at the latest. This also makes fall carrots perfect for succession. As one crop finishes in a bed, you can quickly amend the soil and get another round of carrots going. What if you're short on space? This method works beautifully for container carrots. 2. Just choose a container that's at least 12 inches deep and has good drainage holes. Fill it with a high-quality potting mix, so your seeds, water. And then cover the surface with a piece of wood or even a thick piece of cardboard cut to fit. The container opening. Follow the same daily check and gradual removal process. Container carrots are fantastic for small patios or balconies, and they're often easier to protect from early frosts. Speaking of protection, for those of you in cooler zones or if you want to extend your harvest even further. Season extension is your friend. Once your fall carrots are established, you can cover them with a lightweight row cover or even a small hoop house as temperatures start to drop. This will protect them from light frosts and allow them to continue growing and sweetening up well into late fall. Sometimes even into early winter. I've had success harvesting sweet carrots from under a simple row cover well after the first snow. Finally, the reward. Harvesting your fall. You can start harvesting baby carrots as soon as they reach a usable size, usually around half an inch in diameter. For full-sized carrots, wait until they are about 1 inch in diameter at the crown. Gently loosen the soil around the carrot with a trowel, then grasp the greens firmly and pull straight up. Don't just yank them, or you might break the root. The best part? Fall carrots can often be left in the ground until you need them, acting as natural storage. Especially in zones where the ground doesn't freeze solid. Just cover them with a thick layer of straw or leaves to insulate them. So there you have it. The board cover method, a simple, effective technique that takes the guesswork out of germinating fall carrots. No more wasted seeds, no more sparse rows. Just abundant, sweet, delicious carrots that will make all your gardening efforts worthwhile. Give it a try this season, and I promise you won't be disappointed. If you found this technique helpful, please hit that like button, it really helps the channel grow. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What USDA zone are you in? And what's your favorite carrot variety to grow in the fall? Share your tips and experiences. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss my next video, where I'll be showing you my secret for overwintering hardy greens for an early spring harvest. Happy gardening!